Uh, Hello, comrades. I hope I'm audible. If you can hear me correctly, please let me know that my voice is audible, that my video is clear. If anyone is online right now, just let me know that my audio is clear and you can see me properly. Just comment in there so that we can start our session today. I can see people joining in. Just let me know, comrades, any of you who are here, that my voice is audible. Hello, comrades. Can any of you just comment and let me know whether I'm audible or not? Maybe the comments are not coming. I'm not sure if you're commenting also. I can't see anything. I hope I'm audible. Let me start on the. If I'm not audible, I hope somebody will come and tell me that you're not audible. So first of all, thank you so much to this page named Comrade that you have given me this opportunity to come today and talk about Che in his birthday. I know people across the country, people across the globe, for all of them Che Guevara had been one inspiration, this one person who had instilled this revolutionary belief on all among us. And I think it's a pleasure for me that you have given us, you've given me the opportunity to come today in your page and talk about this one person who had been the greatest comrade for all of us. And it's a pleasure to remember Comrade Che Guevara, to remember Comandante Che Guevara in his birthday. So I'll start with the thing that had been really close to me for a couple of years, and whenever we think of this one song that has been my immediate thought whenever I have thought about the life of Che Guevara, the revolutionary named Che Guevara. In JNU we had an organization, we had a little cultural group named Dastak. In Dastak we tried to learn different language, different song. We have tried to learn Malayalam song. The song I everywhere sing, Nammalu Koyum, was learned in that process. There are comrades from Kerala, Malayali comrades, who could sing fluently some Bengali songs what they have learned from us. So during that time only we have learned this song, which is in Spanish, which remembers Che, which talk about what Che Guevara had been meant for the people of Latin America, for the people of the whole South America. So I'll start today's session, our talk today, our conversation today with that song of Comrade Che, Aprendimos Sagarete. Aprendimos Sagarete desde la histórica altura donde el sol de tu procura. Con la luz de tu sonrisa aquí se queda la clara, la entrañable transparencia de tu querida presencia, comandante Che Guevara. Aquí se queda la clara, la entrañable transparencia de tu querida presencia, comandante Che Guevara. Now this song talks about Che, which had been the sunrise of the Latin American people. This song talks about a brave heart which has given the courage back to the people of Latin America to fight back the imperialist American forces. And it is important that today when we see that all across the world there are resistance that is being built up against the imperialist forces, against the fascist forces. It is important to remember this one person who made us believe in our dreams, who came and told us that it is possible. You think pragmatically, you think practical, but you always dream about an impossible. You always dream about something which looks very distant, but if you put your heart and soul into it, it is possible. Now, before I talk in length about Che, just before coming live in your page, I was listening to Comrade Vijay Prasad, who was there with the DYFI Central Executive Committee, and he was talking at length about the life of Che Guevara, how it has really influenced the international politics, particularly the politics of Latin America. And he was making really beautiful examples and really beautiful insights. I would urge you, if you have not heard him yet, you should definitely go back to that page and hear how, as Marxist thinker, we think that Che Guevara had been so important to all of our collective struggle. Now, before going to in elaborately talking about Che, let us all first mourn a very sad, very painful death of a Bollywood actor, an Indian actor named Sushant Rajput. I think all of us were familiar with him. I remember first seeing him in the TV. There was a television show that used to come named Pavitra Rishta. Though, like all the other Indian television shows, it has all its problems, its patriarchy, its misogyny and everything else. But even after that, Sushant Rajput, because of his acting and his wife on screen, both of them were extremely popular. They are loved by a large Indian population, Indian audience. After that, he came to the Bollywood, he came to the film industry, and we have seen beautiful performance. Let it be Kai Poche, let it be Chichore, let it be the extraordinary biopic of Mahendra Singh Dhoni. Everywhere he had outperformed everyone else. And Sushant Rajput, unlike many other Bollywood celebrities, didn't come from a very affluent, a film kind of a family. He came from a very humble background, a small town boy, was really good as a student. He had represented India in the physics Olympiad. So a person like that, a person who is so accomplished, a person who is such a good actor, who had not been really seen into any visible crisis in all these years. It's such a sad day today that we have seen the death, a very painful suicide that he committed. And this somehow brings us to the question that all of us always ask, the question of mental health. The question how in a capitalist society, how a society which primary motive is to garner, to generate as much profit as possible, how it fails the people, how it fails the individual. Comrade Vijay Prasad was saying that Che had always mentioned that socialism is something. Socialism as a system is going to be something that's going to complete a human being. That's going to make a person a complete person. Now today, when we look back, when we see the people around us, when we see death of such young accomplished men, we try to question that argument again. That when capitalism comes to us, and when capitalism says that they're going to give you everything, Sushant Rajput didn't have. Sushant Rajput have enough amount of money. Sushant Rajput had his own home. Sushant Rajput was not really suffering from hunger or poverty or homelessness. Sushant Rajput would have all that thing that as a young person, a teenager or a person of our age who dream to have, who dream to accomplish. Sushant Rajput, even after having all that thing, he fell out. What is that thing? We all know that theory of Marx where he talked about the alienation theory, where he say that how the produced labor, the produced commodity and the labor feel alienated, how they do not feel that the product that they're producing somewhere related to it. And we have seen across the globe the amount of the suicide rate had been increasing in all the corporate sectors, where you're pushed to your maximum to deliver your best. In India also, the film industry, the Bollywood industry is one of the most glamorous industry. It's an industry which does not have any dearth of money, which does not have any dearth of luxury, but even after that it fails to give a minimum mental support to such an accomplished actor that in a time like this he had to commit suicide. I think this is also a time when we mourn the death of such young artists, when we mourn the death of such young artists who had so much of potential to entertain us, to make his dream bigger. When we mourn his death, we also question the system. We also question the system that generate depression, that make one person isolated to its society, to its surrounding, to even the work that they are doing. When today we extend our heartfelt condolence to the demise of Sushant Rajput, we also pledge that the system that creates this kind of discrepancies, the system that creates this kind of depression among young people should not be go unchallenged. Now let us come back to the thing that we are supposed to talk today, Che Guevara. Who was Che Guevara? I remember my first encounter with Che Guevara, with many of you would be having, when I was in college. That was the first time I got to know about Che. Before that, I have seen Che. I have seen Che in the posters. I have seen Che in the flags, in the big hoardings, in books, all that I used to see in my home. But I have never got to know him. The first time I knew Che Guevara, I was in my college first year. That was for the first time I had the liberty to go to book fair along with my friends. Earlier it would be my parents who will be accompanying me, and I also had the freedom to choose whatever book I want to buy. I remember I bought 3 books, and 2 of them I remember. One was Motorcycle Diary by Che, and another book was from a Radical publication, which was a biography of Che's life and all his revolutionary thing. I remember I came back to my home, and within 2 days I have completed both the books. I was gulping. You know, there were pictures of Che riding bike, there were pictures of Che playing football, there were pictures of Che playing guitar. And one personal thing, you know, that attached me with Che is that, just like me, Che was also an asthma patient. And the reason, the motivation why he wanted to pursue medicine, why he wanted to pursue, being a doctor, because he thought that his personal this suffering because of asthma could be cured if he would be a doctor, could be cured if he would have known that how to solve the problem that he faces every day. And I thought that if someone with a chronic asthma could become a revolutionary, could travel the world, could lead a revolution, could dream, and could instill the hope among and across the globe that this is the time to fight for your dreams, this is the time to fight for the justice, why can't I? And I think that was my first very personalized, very intrigued interaction with the thoughts of Che Guevara, with the philosophy, with the politics, and with the praxis of Che. We all know that Che was born in Argentina. He was born to parents, particularly her mother, who was progressive, who had a left inclination, but in Argentina she was never really involved in any kind of activism or that kind of thing. But when he wanted to pursue medicine, during that time he took a trip, which we all know as the Motorcycle Diary, when he along with his friends traveled across Latin America up till Chile, and he tried to interact with people, he tried to understand that what is the problem that people are facing. And that is the time he understood that his personal suffering of being an asthma patient and his motivation of being a doctor is not enough. He understood the reason why people are suffering across the continent is not because there is a lack of medicine or there is a lack of medical support, but precisely there is a lack of financial dependence. There is a lack of people who are giving their labor. There is a lack that the amount of labor that they are putting, they are getting as much of money in exchange of it. He understood the suffering that he has seen all across the Latin American countries is not isolated to a single event or a single cause, but it is part of a system. It is part of a system that exploits larger amount of people and makes sure that through that exploitation, a very small group of people, a small number of people who may be rich, who may be socially elite, get the access to loot enough and enough money from those poor people, to loot the natural resources through these people, through these working class people, through these laboring people. And that is something that he understood, that only learning medicine, only becoming a doctor is not going to bring an end to whatever the suffering that he was seeing around him. Another very important thing that has shaped up Comrade Che's life, what Comrade Vijay Prasad was also mentioning today in the talk, was his meeting with Hilda. He went to Guatemala and he met this wonderful woman who was activist herself, was part of the revolutionary, the Socialist Party in Guatemala. And from that person, Che started to know more and more about the Marxist praxis. Earlier he has read about Marx, he knows the theory and everything, but how it actually operates, how you take Marxism to the people, how you use Marxism as a tool to liberate the people who are under oppression, who are exploited, is something that we learned from Hilda. Later on they also given a birth of a woman, of a girl child named Hildita. And after that we see, when the coups happen in Guatemala, we see Che somehow then coming back to Mexico and then meeting Fidel Castro. And this one meeting was something that changed the life of an aspiring doctor, a person who wanted to be a doctor because he wanted to end the suffering around his people. From being a doctor to being a revolutionary, this is this one moment that had created this huge shift in Che's life. when Che writes, when he first spoke to Fidel, the optimism that Fidel has had inspired Che like anything. Che says that this man named Fidel Castro, a young Cuban revolutionary, who is a new man of this era. This man is going to change the fate of our world. And with the utmost belief of whatever Fidel has said, and with the utmost trust that Fidel has showed in Che, that being a doctor you can definitely be a part of a revolutionary movement. All of them together, they joined the Cuban Revolution, and the story after that all of us know. Years of guerrilla warfare, years of sustained struggle, and what important thing was that this combination of Che and Fidel, where Fidel is someone who is thinking of liberating Cuba, who is thinking of a Marxist-Leninist line, and who is thinking of giving a much aspired freedom to the people of Cuba. In the similar way, you have one person who is a doctor, who is a poet, who is a generous reader. Even when he was in the guerrilla warfare, he will be always carrying book. In between that time, when there is a free time, he is going to read his books up and going to sharpen his ideological understanding. So you have these two very different but yet very dynamic people who was leading the guerrilla warfare, was leading the liberation struggle, the revolution of Cuba, and we have seen that being successful. And today also Cuba still stands as this one hope for the Latin American country of a socialist society, of a leftist society, which has defeated not only the years of oppression, the years of discrimination by the US government, but also made sure that an alternative is possible. Had given this hope that in the Latin American country, let it be Brazil, let it be Venezuela, that if we want a socialism of our kind, a socialism which is indigenous, a socialism which will be like Bolivia, like Venezuela, like Cuba or Brazil is possible. This hope that the Cuban Revolution has given is still important, it still remain at most pertinent. And this is exactly where I really want to talk about something, because a lot of time whenever we talk about Che and Fidel together, we have heard of many conspiracy theory where it is told that Fidel was the bad guy, Fidel was the villain, Fidel wanted to get all the power in his hand, so he had put Che outside, he had put him outside Cuba, and etc. etc. Let us first understand that the beauty of the friendship that Che and Fidel had. There is a memoir where Che writes that the second time or the first time when they were arrested in the Mexican jail, so it was Fidel who got the bail first. He was the Fidel who was able to leave the jail first, but Che was still inside the jail that time. So Che insisted Fidel that, okay, you are a free man now, you please go, I'll also join you. But Fidel said that I'm not going to leave you. The fact that we are comrades, the fact that we have dreamt of a society without exploitation together, and today no matter what, even if I'm granted bail, even if I'm set free earlier, I'm not going to leave this place until and unless you are also free. And that's where Che writes that this is the starting of a comrade who behaved like a blood brother. So this beautiful friendship what Che and Fidel had, the fact that Fidel has never really left people, particularly Che, because Che was a dear friend, a dear comrade who parallelly together had led the Cuban Revolution. Fidel has never really said that, the Che, okay, we do not care what is happening to you, we have to lead our own way. We have to understand that Che and Fidel were very different person. When we see Che is a transnational, is a international, he is full of internationalism. He was born in Argentina. He has learned the basics of left practice in Guatemala. Then he come to Mexico, join Cuban Revolution, and then he come to Cuba and do the revolution. In his way of looking to the world, in his way towards looking to the society, there is a lot of transnationalism, socialism. There is a lot of internationalism that is going on. Where if we look at Fidel Castro, his society, the very social background he is coming from is completely different. He is a Cuban revolutionary. He had seen that for centuries, the people of Cuba, the working class of Cuba had been exploited, have been, tortured, have been killed, had been completely devastated by different fascist rulers, including the last one of Batista. So his primary understanding was definitely to make sure that Cuba is free, that the people of Cuba are living a dignified life. So the way Fidel Castro was leading the Cuban Revolution, and the reason why Che has joined that particular revolution, of course there is a practical and pragmatic difference on it. Now, even after that, we see that nowhere Fidel has stopped Che from, aspiring or, following his dream. When Che said that he wants to go to Africa, he wants to, go and fight for the people there, Fidel had a different opinion. Because Fidel thought that because he or the Communist Party or the revolutionaries then is in charge of the Cuba, and sustaining Cuban socialism or Cuban style of socialism or his independent state is not going to be an easy thing. We all know how notorious the America had been. We all know how the whole Latin American or South American countries were said that it is a banana republic. It's America who is to make sure who will be, appointing who is going to be the prime minister, who is going to be the president. These people didn't have their any autonomy. And Fidel understood that leaving Cuba and going to Africa is not going to be a pragmatic decision, because the Cuba as a state, Cuban socialism as a socialism was not in that time in a position that if left unattached, if left, for a time being, if it is not taken care of, it's going to be sustaining. It can sustain themselves, and that's why Fidel took that decision that it's not the right time, that the way we have brought the revolution in Cuba, we can do the similar thing, particularly in a different continent, which is much far away from where Cuba is. But Che, being a true internationalist, what he is, being a transnational socialist, he believed that this is the right time, and this is the place where you have to understand that both of them are right. Che is right in his own way, in his vision, with his understanding of society, the reason he got involved in Cuban revolution, and Fidel is exactly right as a head of a state, which is still in a very vulnerable situation. And we see that Che goes off, Che goes to Congo, after that Bolivia, and all that thing we know. But the thing that we should not forget, that even after all this thing, even after all this difference, Che has never in his life had said a single word against Fidel Castro. Fidel, in his writing, in his letter, nowhere has said a single word against Che, because both of them understood that no matter how much different we are, the ultimate goal that both of us we see, the ultimate dream that both of us have to achieve and is same. Maybe our way of looking into it is different, and both of them respected that. And that's the beauty of comradeship. That's the beauty of revolutionary ideas. That's the beauty of a revolutionary friendship, where two people really different from each other decides to give each other the respect of their thought, decided that no matter whatever difference between us is, we are not going to let our friendship, our comradeship die. And I think it's very important when we gulp down all this US propaganda of how Fidel is a bad man, and Che is the one who got betrayed, and he's a bechara. I really don't think that Che Guevara, our comrade Che Guevara, is something who can be debated like that. Our Che Guevara is not something who can be betrayed like that. Fidel Castro, even after so many attempts by the US to kill him, stood his ground. And today Fidel Castro is the name of hope for the whole Latin American countries who are fighting against US imperialism. Che Guevara, with such short-lived life, a doctor who turned into a revolutionary, Argentinian who became a Cuban citizen, Argentinian who after becoming a Cuban citizen became an international ambassador, a foreign ambassador, travel around the world, go to Africa, come to India, come to West Bengal, meet the people of the third world country, and try to think of a emancipation where all these people who are exploited, all these people who are deprived, have a common socialist future. And in such short-lived life, after he's going to Congo and after that Bolivia and getting killed, getting assassinated there, till now Che Guevara remains one of the most prominent, one of the most popular icon of revolution, one of the most popular icon of socialism or communist ideals across the world. Today, when you see in America, when Black Lives Matter happened, when you see a young man, with the Che Guevara's quote said that either revolution or death, you believe that the revolutionary in Che Guevara could not be killed by this one bullet. As Che told when he was being shot, that you can kill me. If you are going to kill me, you are just going to kill a human being. Because the revolutionary ideas of Che Guevara is not only defined or not only concentrated or confined in that earthly body of Che. Che's idea of revolution, Che's idea of changing this world is everywhere from America to India, when a boy or a girl of my age reads the diary of Motorcycle Diary, reads the biography of Che Guevara and decide that socialism is the future, Comrade Che Guevara, his revolutionary thought are living on. When in Black Lives Matter, in that protest, when a young black woman take the photo of Che and say that either revolution or death, Comrade Che's ideas, Comrade Che's revolution is living on. And that's what the people who are sitting on the West, the American imperialists, they fear. We have seen there are so many attempts had been done, movies had been made where we vilify the Cuban Revolution, where we vilified Che Guevara. We have seen that when that was not succeeded, they tried to, incorporating, they tried to appropriating, where Che Guevara is taken out from his revolutionary life, where Che Guevara is portrayed as someone who, used to smoke a lot, who had a really cool, swag, what you are going to say in nowadays, who used to wear, very cool clothes, who used to not give a damn to other people. It's more like a, how you paint the character of Wolverine in X-Men. In the similar way, the West, the Bollywood, the Hollywood, the American imperialists tried to portray even Che Guevara. They tried to put him as a youth icon who is not really caring about society, who is really comfortable in smoking and living a rebellious life. But the interesting thing is, when they establish Che Guevara as a rebel, they definitely do take away the revolution which Che Guevara was talking about. Of course, Che Guevara was a rebel, a doctor who became a revolutionary. Of course, there was a lot of rebel tendency on Che, but his rebellion was not out of discipline. His rebellion definitely spoke about the question of land. His rebellion definitely talked about that why larger section of people are hungry and few people are sitting on their golden throne. The fact that how the West tried to portray Che, first as a terrorist, first as someone who is against the world peace, and second when they were not succeeded in their propaganda, how they tried to appropriate him as a rebel, as someone devoid of his politics, is something that we have to be very conscious of. Che Guevara cannot be think of a rebel alone. Che Guevara needs to be understood. Che Guevara needs to be loved and believed with all the politics, with all the political conviction that man has shown in his very short-lived life. Now I was telling that for me, Che Guevara, my connecting point with Che Guevara was definitely both of us being an asthma patient. And in a similar way, I know that there are thousands of people for whom Che Guevara, the name, the life has a different meaning. For many people, and I think for most of us, Che Guevara is this great revolutionary who had given us hope for socialist revolution of a left country, of a liberation. What he has done, and that is true. That for most of us, that is true. But for many people, he is also a doctor who thought of universal healthcare system in a completely different way. Today, when we see that when the whole world is fighting the COVID pandemic, we have seen the extraordinary role that Cuba as a country had played. Now, what Che understood during his his travel, during his motorcycle journey, after the whole time he was involved in the guerrilla warfare, in the liberation movement, he understood that giving everyone free healthcare, making sure that healthcare is accessible to everyone, is a primary thing to make sure that the country is safe, that the country is secure. He also understood that giving healthcare is not going to be alone enough. He understood that when people do not have the consciousness of hygiene, when people do not understand or do not have the education to how to really take care of themselves, only giving a universal healthcare system is not going to work. So you see, the moment Cuba gets its liberation, Cuba gets its freedom, the two things that the government was working upon was first health and secondly education. Even after that, after the fall of USSR, when we see Cuba opening up his tourism and trying to focus on tourism and trying to get some money out of it, we have seen that the government has never really neglected the question of education and the question of health. They understood that these are the two pivotal things on nation building. If you can make sure that the children of your country, that the future of country are educated, half of your work is done. If you can make sure that nobody is dying out of hunger, if you can make sure that nobody is dying out of lack of medicine, lack of medical support, then the self-sustenance of your country, the belief that the people of your country is going to have on the government is half done. Now, with this understanding, this Dr. Che, who wanted to become a doctor and later on became a revolutionary, had shaped up this universal healthcare system of Cuba like no one else did. In another way, a lot of people image Che Guevara. They image Che Guevara as a lover, as a romantic person, as a poet, as someone who taught all of us to love fearlessly. We all know about Hilda, we all know about Chechina, the first woman, that 18-year-old girl to whom Che fell in love. But Chechina was from a very is a very high-class society, from a rich family, and she denied Che and said that no, I'm not going to accept your proposal. After that, we have seen him in his life being in a very dedicated lover to all the people that he has loved. And the writing that he has written, a lot of people had really imagined him as this romantic, extremely a person who is driven from this idea of love. And he says also that maybe I'll sound ridiculous, but let me say that any revolution is to be driven from a great sense of love. And I think many of us all also connect Che in that way, because in our head, in the propaganda material that we all gulp in the media and the TV, it has been always told that revolution is something which is very violent. Revolution is something which is very bloody. Revolution is something which needs to be very cruel. You know, that a person who is a revolutionary needs to be a very cold-hearted person who does not really, blink an eye when someone is killed. But Che had showed that that is not the right thing. He has written also that let not the violence of our warfare, let not the violence of all the things that we are doing kill the individual, kill that soft heart of our inside us. So even after all this, the chaos that he has gone through, even after all the bloodshed, all the war that he has gone through, he was able to keep his lover self, his that inner peace, that love for each other, the love for other people, keeping intact. And I think that is also something that people of our generation, for whom the meaning of love had been, ever changing, we also should go back and visit this lover named Che Guevara, who with his revolutionary life had defined and redefined that what it is to love a person, what it is to love a society, a community, your friend, your comrades, or the person you claim to love. I think we all should revisit that Che Guevara too. But the interesting thing, the one I want to end up by saying, that for a lot of people, maybe we do not know, for a lot of people, Che Guevara is also Saint Ernesto. Now, people who do not know, I want to tell you that you all know in Bolivia, he was caught. There was a small village which is up there in the mountain. He was hiding, but then the CIA has come, captured him, and he was shot dead. Now, those people of the small village, the nurse who was taking the dead body of Che, he looked into the photo and he said that, he looked into the dead body and he said that this man looked like Jesus Christ. He had long curly hair falling down from his head. He had a beard all over his face, and he has these two eyes, big bright eyes, looking straight up to somewhere. And even after death, it has so much of brightness in it. So the nurse who was cleaning up the dead body of Che, he looked into it and said that he looked like Jesus Christ. And from then there was a cult that the people in that village, they consider Che as Saint Ernesto. And they say that whenever they are in trouble, they pray to Saint Ernesto, and they believe that this Saint Ernesto is capable of doing miracle. Right now, that small village where nobody used to go, because Che went there, because Che was killed there, it has become a huge tourist site. People from outside come there, and the people who earlier didn't have any kind of work, who didn't have any kind of job, now they have some sort of dependence. And they say that all these things, the reason that I am earning today, I am eating today, is all that happened because the Saint Ernesto has come to our land and given us all the bread. So this interesting thing is that the dynamicity of this man called Che Guevara, who ended up becoming from a doctor to a revolutionary to a saint, to someone who people started worshipping. And I think this is a very unique way, a very unique instance, where an individual, a communist, a revolutionary, was able to make himself of such a cult that people, even in the abroad, even in a very foreign land, were able to receive Che Guevara as something which is very dear to them. Even after so many years, Che remained one of the most dearest possession of that small village in Bolivia. Evo Morales, I remember when he was in power, they did a huge program where they said that we are remembering the legacy of Che, and we are thinking of bringing back the revolutionary legacy that Che tried to taught us. And this is the beauty of this man named Che Guevara, that from being a doctor, from a revolutionary, from born in Argentina, then being a revolutionary in Cuba, and then being dead in a far land named Bolivia. Not everybody could do it. Che did it, and that's why I think Che remains immortal. Che remains immortal in our struggle. Che remains immortal in every time we say Ho Chi Minh, we shall fight, we shall win. Che, Lenin, Bhagat Singh, we shall fight, we shall win. In everywhere against the oppression, when we take Che Guevara's name, when we say that it is better to die standing than living on knees, I think we all live the legacy of Che Guevara. We all live this extraordinary human being who in his core he was driven by the love for the other people, but at the same time he was a Marxist-Leninist. He believed in the praxis. He believed in the theory that is taught. He believed in the correct articulation, in the correct implementation of it among the people. And when we today look back, a lot of people say that Che is this one free-flowing person who wanted to go everywhere and try to bring revolution, and Fidel was someone who didn't want him to do it. I think we all should revisit the fact why Bolivian revolt, or even the revolt or the revolution that Che was planning in Congo failed. The major reason was, unlike in Cuba, where we have a Cuban revolutionary named Fidel Castro, whom people of Cuba were aware of, where people of Cuba could connect to, let it be in Congo or let it be in Bolivia, Che could not get anybody like that. Anyone who is from that particular place, who had this huge acceptance by the people of that particular place, let it be Congo or let it be Bolivia. And that is one reason why, even after having implemented all those techniques that were implemented in Cuba, the other two revolutions were not successful. Because as we always say, as Lenin has said, that concrete analysis of the concrete situation, every revolution, every socialist society will be different in its own way. The way the revolution came in Cuba, it's not the same way how it came to China. This is not the same way how it came to Vietnam, and I'm sure that is not going to be the way it will come to India. All of us, with our different social, political complexity, with our history, with our heredity, with our complex legacy, the idea of socialism, the idea of revolution will be different. And no revolution, as Che, again I want to quote, as he said that revolution is not something, a fruit that is going to be that will fall on your hand once ripe. You have to make the fruit fall. So the idea that liberation is not something that what he also said, that I'm no liberator, that there is no understanding, there is no existence of someone called liberator. People liberate themselves. So the indigenous struggle of people making their own kind of socialism, making their own kind of agenda in the revolution is very much important. And I think in the birth anniversary of our dear comrade, our favorite comrade Che, let us all remember that complexity and the heterogeneity of revolution or socialistic society that it is going to have in it, and let us all practice whatever Che has taught us, of loving fearlessly, of not backing out no matter what, of standing straight while somebody kills you because of your ideology, and not kneeling down no matter even if it's a death threat. Let us all remember it, because in this time, in this fascistic time, when we have fascists all across the country, all across the globe, and they are trying to crush the movement of the oppressed, they are trying to crush the movement of the working class people, let us all hold each other's hand, let us all keep the belief what Che tried to instill on us. And I'm not going to extend my speech further, just with one thing I'm going to end, because you all would have seen in this page only, in the comrade page, we have seen this today only, the post of Comrade Ajit Sarkar. Now this Comrade Ajit Sarkar was a very popular leader of Bihar. He was fighting against the coal mafia, the land mafia, and he was killed. Now just like Che Guevara, Ajit Sarkar was also someone who has not really surrendered. There had been many instances where he was threatened that you stop your communism activism, you stop the Communist Party, you stop organizing the labors, you stop talking against us, we are not going to do anything. But just like Che, Ajit Sarkar decided that it is glorified, it's of much more honor to die standing than live with your knees, than live with your heads held down. And I think that this legacy of these brave hearts like that of Che Guevara, or this brave heart like that of Ajit Sarkar, are living on us with each and every time. The people of SFI, the people of DIFI, the people of left organizations, CITU, AIKS, or anybody else who believe in a organized left politics, every time we raise our voice against the ruler, every time we raise the slogans of independence, democracy, socialism, for equal rights and equal dignity, I think we all are living the dream that Che or Ajit Sarkar would have dreamt. I'm not going to extend my speech anymore. If you have any question to ask me, I would be glad to answer that. I wish you all the best, and I again want to extend my revolutionary greetings and thanks to the comrades of this page called Comrade for giving me this opportunity to share my thought with one of the person I hold very dear to me, Comrade Che Guevara. Thank you. If there are any question, we can see it. If I can see the question if there is any. I don't know why, but I can't see any comment. If it's natural or there's some problem with my this thing, I don't know. Okay, thank you. A lot of comrades had told me, sorry, I have to use my laptop because in my phone I can't see the comments. So I'll be looking into the laptop. I'll see what are the questions. I'll try to answer. A lot of comrades said Lal Salam. Lal Salam, comrade. Revolutionary greetings to all of you. Bampanthi Sansad made it was I'm not sure what is written in Hindi. Sudhin is telling North-South Asian political leader is success. I'm not sure. I'm not able to understand what you're trying to, Sudhin. If you can just like elaborate a little bit, I'll love to answer that. Lal Salam, comrade. Public healthcare is must, of course. Public healthcare is must, and I think COVID-19 has proved it again and again. We have seen in Vietnam, we have seen in Cuba, even in our own country, our Kerala, our comrades of Kerala, Comrade Shailaja Teacher, Comrade Pinarayi Vijayan, and all our comrades together, they have proven that universal healthcare, healthcare for everyone is a must to fight any pandemic, to make sure that the people of that particular country or the state is healthy and well and alive. Kachin is saying, Rebellion Che is great. Today I am working in pandemic condition only because of the teaching of my master, Sri Shyam Gaikar, leftist, who introduced me to Fidel and Che at my age 12 year. Today I am very strong enough to work. Oh, that's such a beautiful. I mean, whatever I was telling you, you just have someone saying the same thing. That Che, Fidel, though being so distant to us physically, they both were from continents apart, but their lives, their revolution, their philosophy was so much, full of energy and full of dedication that it has really influenced people like us, people like Comrade Kachin, who just commented here that it is the lesson of Comrades Fidel, Comrades Che that made him interested, that made him given enough hope that he still work even during the COVID-19 time. Lal Salam, comrade. Lal Salam. I'm not taking each and everyone's name who are saying me Lal Salam because then it will be ever ending. She also has written a poem. I'm sorry, I don't know that. If you have it, you can send me. I'll definitely love to read it out. Cuban had a strong working class movement in cities which supported Fidel's guerrilla war. Absolutely. That's what we are talking about. That many a time when Che is represented as a rebellion, or even among the left, there is a section who likes to draw Che's inspiration, but only the guerrilla warfare side. They only say that okay, if Che could do revolution, if Che could involve in a guerrilla warfare, why not in India? They do not really consider the kind of groundwork which was already done in Cuba, the way Comrade has been just correctly mentioned, that how they were able to, get together the working class, the poor people in Cuba, both in the cities and in the villages, that had given that backbone that the revolution there could sustain. And that is the exact thing which was missing in Bolivia and Congo, which I just told. That this idea of revolution is very fascinating. It's very beautiful that when you think of someone that, with your guns, you are actually killing all the people who have done wrong to you. You are killing all the rich people who have exploited you, your parents, your generation, who have looted the natural resources. This all are very fascinating. These are all are very romanticized. But the thing is that revolution is not a TV program. It's not a reality show. It's not going to be that easy. For every revolution to be succeeded, there need a very strong groundwork where you convince the people, who are going to be a support, the laboring class, the peasants, the farmers, the workers, that this revolution is the only way, out from your suffering. Till the time you are not convinced, till the time the people think that there is no other way but to take up the guns, no revolution can be successful. If you think that without building a proper organization, without organizing people in movement, in ideology, you can just bring some guns, bring some bullets and kill some people and revolution is going to come like that. That's a completely flawed idea. And we have seen that happen in our country, how it has, the armed revolution has not been successful. Because the time that we are dealing with, the state is very, very strong. It's strong militarily. It is strong with all the other institutions. Because we live in a bourgeois democracy, there are already so many other institutions what a normal working class people might think that I should maybe first try that option. Maybe I should first try to find someone, a leader of mine, to become the prime minister, to become the chief minister. Maybe that will be a easier way to end my suffering than taking up the guns. Because taking up the guns, going in an armed revolution is going to be the last resort for particularly people of the working class. So absolutely, I completely agree with Comrade Lewis that it's an absolute flawed idea by many of even our comrades who think that revolution is going to be, or the state power can be captured with only the barrel of gun. It cannot be done. It was not done in Cuba without the organized movement, without the organized peace in the working class. The movement in Cuba could not have been successful, and it has not been successful even inside our country too. Okay. How are you, comrade? I'm good, comrade. I'm doing great. I hope you are also good. Comrade Kadri is one of our former AISF leader and a very close comrade of ours. I hope you are also keeping well, being with the comrades, helping the comrades in your constituency and making sure that people are good even in this time of distress. লাল সালাম ভারতবর্ষের স্বনির্ভরতা তৈরিতে সাম্যবাদী আন্দোলন আরও ব্যাপক মাত্রা নেওয়া এখানে জরুরি The comrade Taimur Khan is saying that to make a self-sufficient or independent India, it is very important that we go towards a socialist way of organizing people, and I think it is completely absolutely right because we are seeing that when the COVID-19 happened, what our leaders, our prime minister, our finance minister was coming and telling us that they are actually coming up with big budgets. They are going to give us this much of money, and what we have seen in reality that none of these big promises are made successful. We have not seen really any migrant workers getting money. We have not seen really anywhere the PDS system is being revamped. So all that thing that they have seen is a lie. But at the same time, we are seeing that when the people are fighting to survive, survivability is in the question. We are seeing our government is selling off all the natural resources. We are seeing them selling off our PSUs, our state-sponsored industries where so many people were having a permanent job or having a proper formal jobs. And this is also a time for all of us to understand that in a bourgeois democratic system, when you have such fascist right-wingers sitting on your government, sitting there as a prime minister, as a finance minister, it's not going to be easy. If the people of India needs to be survived, if the people of India needs to have a healthy, prosperous life ahead, there is no other option but socialism. Until and unless we make sure that there are food for everyone, until and unless we make sure that education is for everyone, healthcare facilities are for everyone, pandemic like this or any natural calamity which might have happened because of the global warming and all the things that are happening, it's not going to be possible. We are not going to be able to stop it. So for making a self-sustained India, for making India a dependent, not an independent country which is not dependent for its financial activities to the other countries, we need to have a socialistic way, some socialistic policies that will make sure that we are self-sufficient in our own way. Revolution ki tarah. Okay. There are a lot of people who come here to troll and all. There is a very filthy comment by someone named Mrinmoy. I'm not going to respond to him, but I'm just going to tell you that this is a hard time. I mean, it's a difficult time, I understand. Anyway, a lot of people who do work for the IT cell, they are jobless. I mean, they do work for IT cell because IT cell pay them for every comment that they make, every abuse that they go and hurl to other people, to a communist, to a person who does not believe in their right-wing Hindutva politics. I understand it is difficult time for you since you are not able to do any riot somewhere, since your payment also will be little, you are not getting your payments for your IT cell activity every day. But I just want to tell you that, things are not good for anyone. The way this government is going, if you are not someone who is a son or daughter of a Tata, Birla, Ambani, if you are not somehow related to Narendra Modi, even you are not going to be safe. The kind of economic crisis that our country is going to enter, which neither your 56-inch Narendra Modi, not your Nirmala Sitharaman is able to stop, all of us are going to be affected, including you. So this is high time. Come out of your that stupidity that is being fed on your head through WhatsApp, through social media. Try to see things unbiasedly. Try to think about all these migrant workers who are trying to go back to their home, who had died, who were killed by the state. When the lockdown was announced, nowhere it was told that how the people, the workers who are stuck outside their home, how they are going to be taken care. Nowhere it was told. You think about those people. There will be a lot of people who died, who are still working, who might die out of COVID or out of hunger right now. Many of them would have voted for Narendra Modi, just like you have. Many of them would have gone and started this cyber war where they go and abuse people, saying that you are a Pakistani, you are a Qawmi, you are a jihadi, or the stupid kind of filthy comment that you are putting here. Many of them might have, but the thing is that many of them do not have any thing to eat in their home now. Many of them has lost their dear ones during this pandemic, during this lockdown, because our state government, our central government did not think that the poor people's life is important in our country. Come out of your brainwashed world. Come out and try to see things from an unbiased, way, just like the way Che Guevara would have told. Try to think about things which are not told to you. Try to use your own brain, and maybe you will find a purpose of your life too, rather than coming to a page and abuse there. Comrade, how was Che get inspired? How did Che get inspired by Marxism? Other thing, I told you that Comrade Che was born to a leftist parents. Particularly, he was really influenced by his mother. His mother was a leftist progressive woman and was involved in a certain kind of political movement or organizing politically. So she was the first one that Che got to know about the crafts of left understanding and Marxism. Later on, when he was traveling across, that time he read about Marx. He read the ideology about Marx and he had a fair idea about it. But his major thing, as I was telling, his major idea about how to involve with Marxism, how to use Marxism as a praxis, came from Hilda when he was in Guatemala. And of course, during the time when he met Fidel, when he heard of him, when he heard his enthusiasm and revolutionary idea, he was greatly moved by it. So these are the basic places from where Che has drawn his inspiration towards Marxism. We need to educate people. People are not able to think. We should start educating people. Che also has said that the prathamik sharto biplaver shikkito, that you have to be educated for the revolution. And as I told that education and healthcare had been two primary places where the Cuban Revolution had invested a lot. politically, economically, in both the ways. So yes, it is true. To get everyone the consciousness of their being, education is very important. We are seeing it across the globe. Wherever people try to fight an oppressive regime, wherever they try to fight the people who are oppressing them, education had been a very important tool for them. We have seen in India, even when Ambedkar was organizing the people, the Dalit, and the backward caste, he also said that educate, agitate, and organize. So education had been a primary understanding of any revolutionary or any emancipatory process. Let it be in Cuba, let it be in India, let it be any other part of the globe. So yes, education is essential. Education is essential to get us the consciousness of our being, to get us the consciousness of how the flawed system is, and also in today's world, education is a great source of mobility. To get a dignified life, there is no other option but to have a universal access to education. Thanks, comrade. We should fight against fascism. Yes, we are. Okay, there are many questions. I'm just trying to find out, filter out the thing that I'll be able to. Who killed Che? Che was killed by the CIA. I mean, it's not important to remember who is the individual who killed, because it was not. The killing of Che was, or the person who shot Che, they didn't kill Che because of some individual rivalry. It came from a structural understanding, because when he was first captured, the CIA agent who was there, it was told that primarily it was told that he's not going to be killed, but he is going to be taken to a court martial where it will be decided that what is going to be done to him. But after that, there was an abrupt instruction that came from USA, and it was told that just finish him off, just get rid of him. That was the exact word, get rid of him, and he was shot dead. And I don't remember the name. There was one person who volunteered to kill Che, and with a gunfire, his life, the revolutionary life, was ended. Now there's an interesting thing that I got to know from Comrade Vijay Prasad only today. He was telling that this person, the exact person who killed or who fired Che, he had some disease with his eyes or something. There was some disease he was suffering. So the Cuban people, the Cuban state, called him in Cuba and did his all the surgery, did all the medicine and everything without any cost, free of cost in Cuba, because they said that Che at the core of his heart was a humanist, was a doctor. And in a situation like that, when a person is diseased, when a person is or a person who is suffering from some kind of medical condition, Che would have never refused to treat that person. And that's why the Cuban people had maintained the legacy of Che and given a free treatment to the person who killed their beloved Che. And I think that is the beauty of what our revolution is. That's the beauty what Che has taught us. The way he told that let's not the harshness of outside kill the inner peace. Let us not kill that love that we feel for other people due to this harshness of outside. And I think the Cuban people, the Cuban revolution, with the exact legacy of Che, was able to do it. Even after so much of hatred, even after so much of killing, so much of persecution against this small little island country named Cuba, they really didn't give up. Even now, they have been one of the greatest source of inspiration for all the people who love humanity, for all the people who believe this exploitation of people on the hands of the other people needs to be ended. And that's what the beauty that socialism, socialist country should be. लाल सलाम कॉमरेड्स, हम लड़ेंगे साथी उदास मौसम के खिलाफ. I'll sing that song while I end. Next election, what's important? Develop critical thinking, rational thinking. Okay. A lot of comrades have said that we have to ensure that there is a critical thinking and there is a like where we question the people, and I think it's important, and I think it's essential in the left ideology. We are the student of Bhagat Singh, just like Cuba has Che Guevara. We have no less. Bhagat Singh's life was no less. Maybe he didn't get all the opportunity that Che could get. He could not get the title of liberating India, but we believe that in many essence Che and Bhagat Singh were very close to each other, and Bhagat Singh has always said that question everything. If there is something that cannot answer whatever you are questioning, you should not accept it as it is. And this is the core of critical idea. This is the core of a left understanding, that where we question the society, where you question the existing order. It is true that many a time, if one ideology is becoming hegemonic, if one ideology tend to be less democratic, this idea of questioning, this practice of questioning is being reduced. And I think that is being one main reason for many places for our kind of socialism or our kind of praxis to be not being working. And I think this is the time to revamp that tradition too. We have to ask questions among us. We have to understand the privileges that even within our organization we hold. We have to call that out. Let it be casteism, let it be patriarchy, let it be racism, let it be ableism. All these things which are inherent to a right wing, to a feudal society. When we enter into an emancipatory project, when you enter into a transformative project, we all have to question all these privileges. We will all have to question all this stigma, and through that, through the critical thinking, to understanding the situation, with the concrete analysis of the concrete situation, with the emancipatory view, dream, we will be able to change this society just the way Che or Bhagat Singh would have dreamt of. I don't think there are much questions, because if there are questions, I'm not able to see. Acha. The comments are in this. Some Dalit organization says that the communist parties in India cannot influence the people because this is a flawed understanding. I do not say that the Communist Party of India do not have a proper idea about the caste, because it is impossible for anyone in India to do politics and not acknowledge or not understand the horrific system that casteism is. I think there's a lack of our part, that maybe we are not really able to popularize our own history. If you look at the early communist movement, there had been many places where you have taken caste as the primary enemy that we have fought for. You would be knowing AKG, Comrade A.K. Gopalan, who had been one of the stalwart leaders of Communist Party in Kerala. So during his early time, the movement that he led was for the temple entry movement, where he was demanding that the people who, just because they come from a certain caste, the Dalit or the so-called lower caste, they cannot enter a temple. This tradition was there in a casteist feudal society. Now AKG was one among them who challenged it and said that no, you cannot discriminate someone. If someone thinks that she wants to go to that building, if it's a temple, if it's a hospital, if it's a school, that person has the right to go there. And you cannot determine, you cannot dictate someone because just that person is born in a certain family. Just because that person is born in a certain, with a surname, you cannot differentiate, you cannot discriminate people with that. And with that we have seen the temple entry movement. You would be knowing in Tamil Nadu, we have the Untouchability Dedication Front, who are working with other Dalit organizations together, hand in hand, to talk against the untouchability. We know there is DSMM, Dalit Shakti, Dalit Social Mukti Morcha, where we have seen that people are really taking the question of caste as an important question to be addressed, because there should not be any understanding, or there should be any flawed idea in our head that caste does not exist in a progressive society, let it be Bengal or let it be Kerala. Caste had been improvising itself and forming its own manifestation in different society. In our classic feudal society, in a village society where the production relations are still bounded with the caste relation, there is no other way. You cannot escape your caste atrocities. You cannot escape the caste ascribed role. So if you are born in a peasant family, nobody is going to really give you the chance to to get a mobility, to emancipate and become something else. If you are born in a family which is so-called be treated as untouchable, who do the cremation work, who do the the other menial job, there is no one in that particular village who will allow you to have an emancipation, to have a mobility and get into any other job. In a traditional feudal family, caste is something, a society, caste is something that determines what you're going to do, what food you're going to eat, what clothes you're going to wear, where you're going to go, where you're not going to go, whether you're going to school or not, whether if you're going to school, which place you're going to sit, whether you have the right to sit beside an upper caste boy or not. This everything is decided by caste in a feudal, in a traditional feudal society. Now, if you come to a city area, many people might say that with the capitalism, with urban spaces coming into the place, this idea of caste has been evaporating, it's vanishing. That's a completely wrong idea. In urban spaces, caste is manifesting in a different way. You go to Delhi, you go to Kolkata, you go to any metropolitan city, you will still find Muchipada Lane. You will still find Vengi Basti. Why these places are named with such names? Because these are the places where people from the lower caste, people from the certain community stays. So they are looked as someone or a place which is to be which is stigmatized, which looks like a ghetto, that only the people from this certain community stays there. You won't find any upper caste home during this ghetto. You won't find in a very posh upper caste locality number of Dalit or number of backward caste, or even the Muslim residing in the similar housing complexes. So even in an urban space which looked or which promised to us to be very progressive and modern, caste still exists in a different way, in a different form. It has manifested itself in a different way, but to think that caste does not exist, or to think that there is any movement particularly taking the working class in the forefront is possible without taking caste into the consideration, is a completely flawed idea. There might be some lack from our part, from the communist movement, on dealing how the question of caste is dealt, compare it to that of the Dalit organization, but that does not mean you can make a blanket statement and say that the people in the Communist Party do not have a proper idea of caste. We do not see caste only as identity, but we see caste very much embedded into the power relation, into the production relation. And if socialism talk about changing the power relation, changing the production relation, it cannot do it without addressing the question of caste, without addressing how caste as a tool shape up the occupational choices for people. So it's a flawed idea that the communism or the Communist Party do not need or do not know how to. Okay. Both parties I think I have almost I could not see anywhere. I think I have spoken for a long time. It's already going to be 10. I believe you all have some work to do. You have to do your dinner if you're in home, if you're in that kind of a privilege that where you have food in your kitchen, you have a own home of yourself. So I'm not going to extend my speeches anymore. I just saw someone put that Hum Ladenge Saathi. So I thought I'll end with Hum Ladenge Saathi. And again, thank you so much. Thank you so much for all the comrades who have listened for all the long time, who have interacted, who have asked really interesting questions. And it's a pleasure to be here in this page. It's a pleasure to talk with all of you. I want to extend my revolutionary greetings. Happy birthday to our dear comrade Che, and taking his spirit ahead with this song Hum Ladenge Saathi, because I believe if now Che would have been alive, when we see in the state or the power that he would have hated most, the United States of America, whom he had believed had been one of the major reasons for the suffering of the people across the globe, I believe that he would be inspiring lakhs of people, comrades there in America also. He would have given them this hope of fighting, of Hum Ladenge Saathi. So I'll sing that song and end our session today. हम लड़ेंगे साथी उदास मौसम के खिलाफ, हम लड़ेंगे साथी गुलाम इच्छा के लिए, हम लड़ेंगे साथी जिंदगी के टुकड़े हम चुनेंगे साथी, जिंदगी के टुकड़े हो हम लड़ेंगे उदास मौसम के खिलाफ हम लड़ेंगे साथी, गुलाम इच्छा के लिए। इनकलाब जिंदाबाद, revolutionary greetings to all the comrades. Hasta la victoria siempre.